You have more power than you've been led to believe. And you've probably spent so much energy trying to get someone's attention, chasing the feeling of being wanted, being seen, being chosen. When in reality, what you truly need is to return to yourself. To remember that the most magnetic women are not the ones who pursue, they are the ones who choose themselves. Ignoring a man isn't about playing a game. It's about recognizing your worth so deeply that silence becomes your loudest answer. When you stop giving all your energy away and start reclaiming it, something magical happens. He starts to wonder, he starts to notice, and he starts to chase. But let's be clear, we're not doing this to manipulate. That's not the way of true power. This is about healing. This is about shifting the dynamic from desperation to self-respect, from waiting for love to becoming love. Louise Hay taught us something that transforms everything. You've been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens. When you begin to affirm your own value, the whole universe responds, including the men you thought you had to fight for. You're not here to chase after crumbs. You're here to recognize you are the feast. When you stop texting first, when you stop checking if he saw your story, when you stop molding yourself just to fit into his world, you're not disappearing, you're rising, and your absence becomes the space where he begins to see your true worth. Men are naturally drawn to challenge, mystery, and independence, and nothing triggers their desire to pursue more than the realization that they are not the center of your world. So, how do you do it the right way? You do it with intention, with inner work, with elegance. You learn to ignore not from resentment, but from wholeness. You walk away from what no longer serves your peace. You don't need to beg, explain, or convince. Because when you've done the inner work, when you know you are enough, silence becomes sacred. Space becomes seductive. A woman who ignores because she's angry is avoidable. A woman who ignores because she's evolved is irresistible. So many women are terrified of being forgotten. But what they don't realize is that men don't forget the woman who walked away with dignity, the one who didn't fall into drama, the one who stopped reaching out and started rising. Your healing is your strategy, your self-worth is your energy, and your absence is not a punishment, it's a powerful mirror. Because when a man no longer has access to your energy, he starts to reflect on why. He starts to crave the light he used to take for granted. And that's where the shift happens. That's where desire is born. And what's most important in this process is how you treat yourself while you're ignoring him. This is not about sitting in silence, obsessing over what he's doing. No, this is where you pour into you. This is where you become the kind of woman who doesn't just attract love. She becomes love. And then she decides who's worthy of sharing it. The universe responds not to what you want, but to who you are being. That's why Louise Hay always emphasized affirmations, not just as words, but as energetic declarations. So you affirm, I am worthy of love that chooses me freely. I am magnetic. I am enough. I do not chase. I attract. And what belongs to me finds me with ease. And with every repetition, you rewire your belief system. You shift from needing him to needing you. And that's the energy that changes everything. When you learn to ignore him the right way, it's not about absence. It's about alignment. You are aligning with your highest self. You are stepping into your feminine power. You are no longer shrinking for love. You are expanding for joy. And he will feel that. Whether he admits it or not, whether he returns or not, that shift in you becomes unforgettable. And now something begins to unfold within you. A softness that is not weakness. A quiet strength that doesn't scream for validation. It simply is. Because when you begin to ignore not from a place of coldness but from serenity, that energy radiates through everything you do. You're no longer reacting, you are responding with presence, with grace, with intention. There's an ancient pull that men feel toward women who are anchored in their own peace. It's not about detachment, it's about devotion to yourself. You see, when you stop making him your source of happiness, he starts questioning why he ever assumed he was. That gap, That space, it starts echoing with memories of you. Not the you who chased, the you who smiled from the inside out, who disappeared into her own radiance, and in that silence, you're not waiting. You're becoming. You're stepping into your creativity, your rituals, your joy. You're not looking back to see if he's watching. You're too busy becoming the woman who turns heads just by entering a room. That's the energy that stays with a man. Not because it demands attention, but because it lives with such fullness it becomes unforgettable. Louise always reminded us, what I give out, I get back. And when what you give out is dignity, calm, self-love and trust in the timing of the universe, the result is magnetic. That doesn't mean the man will always return, but what returns to you is better than that. It's alignment, it's clarity, it's the knowing that you are already whole. When you learn to ignore the right way, you stop feeding what drains you. You redirect that energy to nurture yourself. And suddenly, the very thing you thought would make you lose someone becomes the exact reason they're drawn to you even more. Because you're no longer accessible in the same way. Your energy is no longer freely available. You've become selective. And being selective is not arrogance, it's awareness. It means you finally understand that what you offer has value, and not everyone gets unlimited access to that. Ignoring doesn't mean being passive-aggressive. It doesn't mean playing silent games, it means protecting your peace like it's sacred. Because it is. It means letting go of the need to explain yourself or justify your boundaries. It means walking away from conversations that go in circles, patterns that exhaust you, and connections that only serve your fear of being alone. There is something deeply empowering about letting someone feel your absence. Not to hurt them, but to honor yourself. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Not because you're indifferent, but because you finally understand that your energy is not for convincing, it's for choosing. And men feel that. They feel the difference between a woman who withdraws to manipulate and a woman who withdraws to heal. They can sense the stillness in your silence, and that stillness speaks louder than words. You are not ignoring to punish. You are ignoring to protect. You are shifting the focus away from him and toward the place where real love begins, within you. You're giving yourself the attention, the validation, the care you used to beg for. And in doing so, you're rewiring your own emotional pattern. You're rewriting the story. The woman who ignores a man the right way doesn't disappear. She transforms, she evolves, and her evolution becomes a force. He may not understand it at first, but he feels it. He feels the shift. The silence becomes a question, the distance becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, he is forced to confront who he is without your constant presence. And you? You're not just healing, you're rising. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that love should never require the loss of self. That moment is sacred. It's the turning point where you stop performing for someone's affection and start returning home, to your essence, your soul, your light. And it's in that return that you truly begin to understand the art of ignoring with intention. When you remove your energy from someone, it's not about absence, it's about redirection. You are not just stepping back from him, you are stepping into yourself. You are no longer driven by the anxiety of not being enough. You are driven by the truth that you are already complete. And that truth doesn't just live in your thoughts, it lives in your actions. You stop over-explaining. You stop accepting less than you desire. You stop negotiating with confusion. Because when a man is unsure, your peace is not the price you pay for his clarity. You learn to let the silence speak for you. Not because you're afraid of expressing yourself, but because you've learned the power of restraint, of knowing that your energy is sacred and not everyone is ready to receive it. This kind of ignoring isn't an act, it's a shift in identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who needs to prove her worth. You've become someone who embodies it. And men, whether consciously or not, are drawn to this. Not because you're unavailable, but because you've become undeniable. And something beautiful begins to unfold. Your focus returns to your passions, the things that once brought you joy, that you abandoned while trying to keep someone's attention, become your sanctuary again. You start dancing more, creating more, laughing deeper, resting better. And all of that is radiant. Louise Hay always said that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And when you change the way you view yourself, from someone lacking to someone luminous, the people around you begin to treat you differently, especially the one who used to take your presence for granted. Because now your presence isn't given, it's earned. And he starts to notice, not just because you're gone, but because you're glowing. He sees the shift, he feels the pull, and that desire doesn't come from your effort, it comes from your elevation. The woman who no longer texts first, not because she's playing a game, but because she's simply no longer available for halfway love, she becomes unforgettable, not for what she does, but for who she is becoming. And the truth is, when you stop chasing, you create space for alignment, for clarity, for miracles. That space is where he realizes he can no longer access you in the same way. That space is where he sees you not as an option, but as the opportunity he let slip. And you're not waiting to be seen. You're seeing yourself more clearly than ever before. You begin to notice the shift, not only in how others respond to you, but in how you feel inside your own skin. There's a serenity now, a quiet joy that no longer depends on external validation. You've stopped measuring your worth by how often he texts or how quickly he replies, because now your attention is no longer a reaction. It's a conscious gift, and only those who honor it are invited into your space. The real essence of ignoring a man the right way is about energetic discipline. It's learning to hold your power instead of scattering it, to resist the urge to chase every moment of attention and instead become the source of your own light. And from that light, something profound grows. Trust. Trust in the process. Trust in the timing. Trust that if someone is meant to be in your life, they will rise to meet the woman you are becoming. Not the version of you that bends and twists to accommodate him, but the version that stands tall, centered, and glowing with self-respect. And when that trust is embodied, you stop needing constant confirmation. You stop refreshing your phone or reading between the lines of his mixed signals. Because now, you're fluent in a new language, the language of energy. And energy doesn't lie. You feel it in your body when something is aligned. And you also feel it when it's time to walk away. You don't chase closure, you become it. And this doesn't mean you harden your heart, it means you refine your boundaries. You learn to love with softness, but you also learn that softness doesn't mean surrendering your standards. Louise Hay reminded us that the thoughts we think and the words we speak are constantly creating our future. So when you affirm, "I am worthy of clarity, commitment, and consistency," you're not just repeating words, you're casting a spell, you're setting a standard, and you're becoming a vibrational match for something greater. Ignoring then becomes sacred. It becomes less about silence towards someone else and more about deep listening to yourself. You begin to notice the patterns you used to accept, the red flags you once ignored, and instead of shrinking to keep someone comfortable, you expand. You let go not because you're tired, but because you're ready for more, and that expansion is felt. A man may not understand it intellectually, but on a primal level, he senses it. That the woman he once took for granted is no longer available on those same terms. She has moved, not geographically, but energetically. And if he wants to find her again, he must rise. He must grow. He must meet her in this new place of value and intention. And here's the secret most people won't tell you. When you truly embody this energy, you won't even care if he comes back. Not out of bitterness, but out of fulfillment. You've filled the spaces within you that once begged to be filled by someone else. You've become the source of your own peace. There comes a moment when you realize that ignoring is not about silence, it's about sovereignty. It's not that you've stopped caring, it's that you've started caring about yourself more. Not in a selfish way, but in a deeply rooted, soul-affirming way. You are no longer handing over your energy like loose change to someone who hasn't earned it. You've begun to invest that energy inward, and the returns are priceless. You're not just becoming unavailable, you're becoming incomparable. Because a woman who has turned her focus inward, who nurtures her mind, her body, her spirit, who fills her days with things that nourish her soul, becomes magnetic without even trying. There is no need to post to be seen, no need to drop hints, no need to provoke a response. You live in such deep connection with yourself that your presence, or your absence, says everything. And here's what's beautiful. As you do this, you become so full that the idea of needing someone to complete you fades away. You stop romanticizing the potential of someone who barely shows up. You stop making excuses. You stop hoping he'll become the man you imagined. Because now you see things as they are, and from that clarity you choose peace over potential, presence over promises, truth over longing. Louise Hay's work has always pointed back to the mirror, to what we are willing to believe about ourselves. And when you believe you are worthy of love that is respectful, consistent, and nurturing, you stop chasing what contradicts that belief. You become discerning, and in your discernment, you become rare. There is a certain kind of silence that feels like punishment, and then there's the silence that feels like power. You've chosen the second, because your silence is not emptiness, it's fullness withheld. And that fullness is what he begins to miss. Not just the conversations or the affection, but the energy, your light, your joy, your presence. And it's often not until you are gone that he starts to see it, that he begins to feel the absence of something he took for granted. But by then, your world has changed. You are not the same woman who once waited. You are no longer starving for scraps of affection. You've sat at the table of your own worth and realized you are the feast. You're not bitter. You're better. Not because you proved anything to him, but because you proved everything to yourself. You've learned that not every man who notices you deserves your vulnerability. That attention isn't affection. That presence isn't commitment. And that love, real, lasting, soul-nourishing love, begins when you stop giving yourself away to avoid being alone. Now you're not afraid of silence. You welcome it. Because in the stillness you meet yourself. And in meeting yourself you discover something revolutionary. You are already whole. And now that you've walked this path back to yourself, something inside you has awakened. It's not the desire to be pursued. It's the realization that you never had to chase love in the first place. Because the kind of love that truly honors you doesn't need to be convinced or reminded or begged. It recognizes you, it rises to meet you, and it stays, not because you demand it, but because your presence inspires it. So you continue to live, to laugh, to expand, not waiting for his message, not measuring your value by his attention, but anchored in the knowing that you are enough, right here, right now. You don't chase, you attract. You don't force, you allow. And from that sacred place of alignment, everything you've ever desired begins to find its way to you. You are not the girl who wonders why he hasn't called. You are the woman who knows her peace is worth more than any temporary validation. You are the woman who no longer negotiates with confusion. You are the woman who has become a standard. And if this message touched your heart, if you felt seen, if something shifted inside you, I invite you to share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's forgotten her power. Someone who's giving too much, loving too hard, waiting too long. Because we heal together. We rise together. Leave me a comment below. I want to know what part resonated with you most. What was your moment of clarity? Let's create a space where we support one another, where we remember who we are, where we reclaim our worth. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next time we meet. Because this space, this channel, is your reminder that you are not alone, that you are worthy, that your energy is sacred. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing you. Let's spread this message together.